everybody, this is Meowth, that's right, and today I'm going to break away from the usual mold to tell you the story of how Wallguy and Meowth almost died. But first, a little bit about the gameplay. This is Novgorod Warzone, game mode sector control, class point man with my gun, the F-88. Well, it's not really my gun, it's just the gun that I'm using at the time, and I'm going to make some people feel the hurt. But anyway, back to my story, and it's a story that starts out, I suppose, just about like any other, you know, once a long time ago in a distant land, and I suppose distant really would depend on, you know, where you're coming from. But anyway, it quickly becomes a journey of epic proportions. So one day, a long time ago, just after I had gotten my first pilot certificate, Wallguy and myself had decided that we were going to go on a flight. A nice long flight because I needed to build some time and some experience to move up to my next certificate. And somewhere along the way we decided we were going to make this flight to Texas. Now, a flight from California to Texas is a little bit over 1,000 miles. So this was going to take some time. It was going to have to be a 3-leg trip given the amount of fuel that we could carry and the speed of the plane that we could fly. Now, being a new pilot, I was very inexperienced in knowing what it takes to go on an extremely long cross-country trip where it's going to take several hours to get to your destination. So, the one thing that I did know is that, of course, every time that you stop, it's going to take you a lot more time. Now, I knew it was going to take me somewhere around 8 hours of flight time, and that's if I kept it to an extreme minimum amount of stops. So, knowing, of course, that it takes more time when you slow down and, you know, land and stop, I tried to make as few stops as possible. Well, in aviation, there's a lot more planning that goes into any flight that you'd ever make than any drive you'd ever take. So, an example is that in aviation, we have to calculate weight and balance, takeoff and landing distance, climb performance, and we also have to get a very thorough pre-flight weather briefing. And this weather briefing, in addition to telling us the weather, you know, thunderstorms, wind, you know, basic conditions like that, as well as airport conditions, and this isn't just limited to weather, but say, you know, like pavement conditions or runway closures, that sort of thing. So after I calculated my weight and balance, my takeoff and landing distance, and of course climb performance and everything, I made a flight plan that was supposed to take us 4 hours and 15 minutes on the flight. We had about 5 hours worth of fuel, and I decided to plan it this way again to make sure that we could get to where we wanted to be as fast as we possibly could get there. And the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has rules, of course, about how much fuel you have to have when you land. And this is, of course, for safety. Now, their rule states that you have to have enough fuel to fly to your destination, plus an extra 45 minutes after that when you're flying at night. So upon completion of my flight plan, I decided I needed to get an updated weather briefing, because in the beginning, flight plans take quite some time to do until you really get the hang of them. So I got an updated weather briefing to make sure that I had the most up-to-date weather and most up-to-date conditions, and everything looked like it was good to go. So Wallguy and I decided it was time to finally get going on our really long trip, and we flew from California across Arizona and New Mexico. Now, New Mexico is where our first stop was supposed to be. But when we got close to the place that we were going to land at first, we had a low fuel light come on, and we couldn't find the airport. Now, according to our navigation equipment, it said that we were right on top of the airport. We just couldn't see it. So I contacted Albuquerque Center and talked to them about it and tried to find out where it was, and they told me I was right over it. But they checked to find out what was going on with it, and they found that the lights for the airport wouldn't come on. So the problem that we were faced with is that the nearest airport was about 50 miles behind us. And that wouldn't normally be an issue because that would be about a 20-minute flight or so in the plane that we were in. But we were in a mountainous region and we were gonna have to climb back up, which would take more fuel, and of course it would take a lot more time. So it was really gonna be cutting it close. Anyways, I was out of options and I decided I was gonna head west and try to make it back to that airport. Now at this point I was extremely nervous. My heart was racing, you know, my hands were probably sweating, and I didn't realize too much what was going on outside of the airplane. I was so nervous that apparently I didn't realize that it was bumpy as shit. It was extremely turbulent. But we obviously made it to the place that we were trying to make it to, and the landing turned out great. You know, we were really happy to be on the ground. We taxied over to get fuel, and I put in 38.5 gallons. Now keep in mind, the airplane only holds 40 gallons. I know I didn't tell you before, but that means we had only a gallon and a half worth of fuel left, you know, before we were empty. Now a gallon and a half might not seem bad if you're driving like a Honda Civic or something very economical like that, but this is an airplane and it burns, at least this one, burns about 8 gallons an hour. So we were just about out of fuel. Had we been a little bit slower or a little bit less fuel, you know, we may have put down on the freeway or worse. Thanks for tuning in about 4 days, episode 2, Assaulter, Mastering Your Favorite Class. Hope to see you guys all then.